Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Winslow, and that is Carlos, and this is the Creative Whole podcast. Today, we'll be discussing the book Leadershift by John C. Maxwell. So, what's up, Carlos?
What it do?
Nothing. Dang, is that how this intro made you react?
That's how
All
it made me
hyphy?
feel. Yeah, it made me feel a little. I felt like I'm going to the boxing ring or something.
Dang, like Rocky?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, I
Hype me
like
up a
that.
little bit. Hype me up a little bit.
I like
I'm
that.
feeling it. I'm feeling it.
That's how we do.
Yep.
It's what we do, I guess.
Yep. So I went and seen a cool little movie today. So it's called Puss in Boots.
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about?
yeah,
It's the little cat, I think, from Shrek or whatever.
yeah.
I'm not like, no, I don't know all the names and stuff, but yeah, I took my son to go see it today, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. I'm always, way overthinking everything and seeing things,
For sure.
yeah, into the storyline. But basically, he had 9 lives, and I don't want to kill it for people who haven't seen it. But basically, he gets towards, he uses all his lives except one, and death is coming for him. And but all his other 9 lives, or his other 8 lives that had died, had to do with his foolishness and basically his ego. And then come to find out, like, one of the lines that there's, like, I think it's soft paws or something like that. This is the girl cat in the movie. Without killing the movie, basically she says, um, along the lines is, she didn't want to be in competition with his first love, which was him. Because he was so full of himself, because he was Puss in Boots, and he was a legend in his own mind. And so, you know, had your boy
He's,
reflecting. I was like,
he is kind of cool though.
yeah, he is. He is. He reminds me of what the heck's that fool's name? The one in the chonies. He's a wrestler. Um,
Rowdy Piper.
no, um, no, the one that says, "Get that corn out of my face." Um,
I don't know.
Nacho Libre.
Oh,
There we go.
so you're thinking like a fake wrestler. I'm thinking of like real,
Yeah.
more so wrestlers.
But he was reminding me of him because the way he talks. So it was cool. Good movie. Check it out.
So thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs up. I liked it.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
Um. So you didn't work today, huh?
I did not work today. I took the day
Wow.
off.
Any
Take
other
it.
days you're taking off?
Yep, tomorrow.
Why? Why are you taking tomorrow off?
Huh? Because it's a Tuesday. Feels like a day to take off.
Oh, just because it's Tuesday?
Yep.
Are you sure there's no other reason?
Well, I know what you're getting at.
Or do you know where I'm getting at? It's your birthday. That's right.
Shorty, it's your birthday. Hey. Yep. Turning 43 tomorrow. Big 4-3.
You're old.
Yep. I embrace it. I
That's
embrace it.
right. That's
Yep.
right.
I got some grays up in here. Grays up in here.
I don't
Yeah.
have no grace.
Because you ain't got no hair, fool.
I do right here. Look, right here. Right here.
You got the soul patch.
Actually, there's some grays in there. Or it's probably white.
I thought I
Didn't,
seen one in there.
it didn't even
Right.
go gray. It went white.
From this angle, I can see it.
Yeah, that checks out.
Just so you guys know, if you're listening, or if you just ever wonder, we are not in the same room. Or, I mean, obviously we're not in the same room, but we're not. We podcast or whatever from different locations virtually. So
Two separate. He's in Malibu,
yep,
California,
Malibu, California.
off the beachfront.
Yeah.
Nice.
Can you hear the ocean?
I can.
Neither can I.
Oh, you can't?
Nope, because the cows are drowning it out.
I'm sorry. Sorry to hear. We'll have to fix that for you.
Yeah.
So,
What are we getting into today?
So we are going to do a little quick recap of last week. with the whole Leadershift series. There might be like a couple more after this one, I believe.
I think there's one more.
One more.
Yeah.
Okay, so last week we kind of touched on developing a growth mindset, and about how the difference between a growth mindset and a goal mindset. Um, and also, what was the other part? About bring
Mentors.
mentors. Um, gave some examples for that, and how
Creating ladders for others, not just climbing your own ladder.
and that you shouldn't just think about yourself. Or actually, that was the one before that, actually, but it's still a
I think it's kind
good
of
part.
threaded through it all.
But mentorship is definitely a good one, I would say. Um, and coming up now, or here in a few moments, we're going to be talking about something, and it's not necessarily about mentorship, in the mentoring way that I think we were talking about last week, but I almost feel as though it's it kind of threads through, um, meaning that with or how I see it anyway, like with mentoring, you get other people's aspects, like people that you might not think might be able to share some ideas, or that you believe that they don't even have anything that they can offer you. I've seen that before in the past. But if you really sit down and you listen, you could see how everybody has something, um, that they could pretty much touch your life with, no matter how much younger they are, no matter how old they are, wherever the case may be. That you can kind of gain anything from anybody, really. Like even if it's a young kid or something like that, in a small sense, like they could be almost mentoring you in something. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just what I was thinking.
Yeah. I guess when I think of like the actual word mentoring, I think in terms of like it's something that's established. Like the role of the mentor versus the mentee. And I think because mentorship in my understanding is someone who's like pretty much like an expert or has way more knowledge in a certain field. And so you're tapping into that knowledge and experience that they have. So I guess in some ways you can definitely learn from a kid because they're definitely experts on their perspective as a kid. You could learn a lot from that for sure.
And I guess the big thing is what we'll just go with the kid, like what they feel that they're an expert in. Because in a sense, it's like, who are we to tell them that they're not an expert in? We'll just go with about the youth these days. Like, because I don't really know much about the youth these days. I mean, I know a little bit, but not to the point of what they know.
Well, you're still a youth yourself, you know.
I mean, I am only 22, so
Mm-hmm.
very true.
Life's just been a little tough.
I mean, you're almost double my age. It happens. It
Yeah.
happens.
I was
So
telling someone that the other day. I was like, "Yeah, I'm only 25." I said, "Just those the drugs are really rough on me.
drugs are real.
Drugs are
Drugs are
real."
real. So we will get back into it. So today we are going to be going over two key ideas. Pretty much the first key idea that we're going to be discussing will be connecting with people achieves better results than simply directing them. Um, well, I'll just go to the next one.
Yeah.
So, too many leaders lead based on assumptions. So, what do you feel that means?
Well, I think as it goes into that relational component of leadership is when you have like a top down approach or maybe the leader jumps into a situation or they just come with their like positional authority and they start um, just assuming things and they don't have conversation or ask questions to find out where you're at or gather more information that could be helpful in helping you guys reach your objectives.
And I feel like not all obviously, but like a lot of leaders have this, I guess, idea that because they're a leader that they know more than everybody else. So with them thinking that they know more than everybody else, that's
Negative.
right, negative ghostwriter.
That's out.
But them thinking that they know like everything above somebody else, they're just going to assume, I don't know, in a sense that they know it all.
I think of the stupid South Park. I am the authority. My authority.
I thought it was authority,
Authority.
but I mean, I'm just saying. So now we're going to go into an example that JCM, also known as John C. Maxwell, um, he goes into in this book. So one of the things is Maxwell witnessed the benefits of leadershifting from directing people to connecting with them when he visited the University of Tennessee Lady Volunteers basketball team, which was coached by Pat Summit. Good old Pat Summit.
Yep.
So one of the things that he was talking about is like when the players would come in at halftime. So typically how it would be like during halftime, everybody goes straight to like the coach, like, okay, so well, what are we doing? And then the coach will go in and they'll show them like what they're doing wrong, what they need to do. And everything is driven. The driving force is the coach. But the difference in this situation would be that instead of just going up to Summit, which is the coach, like straight away, they would hollow around a whiteboard on which were written 3 questions. So the 3 questions that were on this whiteboard was, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? And what should we change? So only
So
go.
before we move into that, my question is, why do you think Summit took that approach?
Well, since I kind of already went over the book, I'm not going to say that part, but I think in the grand scheme of things would be because she wanted them to think rather than be told. Because well, either or, and it seems as though Pat Summit probably had the power to tell the lady volunteers like what to do, and they're more than willing to go do it because of who she was. But at the same time, I feel like it's like, okay, well, you tell me what you guys did wrong, because it feels like there's a little bit more investment if they actually come up with the idea rather than her telling them what to do. And I just think like in general, um, things go a lot smoother when they have investment. And I think the investment would be them coming up with their own, in a sense, like their own ideas, even though the coach probably already knew it, but she wanted them to think about what those 3 questions are, which was, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? And what should we change? Because by them putting the we in there, then it's like, what are we going to do as a team rather than what is the team, even though in a sense, she's not part of the core 5, which is who's on the court.
Yep.
So only after the team had discussed and agreed upon its answers that Summit comes and talks to them. She heard them out, reflected on their answers, and made a few observations before sending them out. So pretty much it was after they went to the board, looked at those 3 questions, discussed it among themselves. Like, first of all, I don't even know how long these timeouts are. Like, I don't think they're that, probably like a 30-second timeout. So they had to like think quick on their feet, I'm guessing.
Was it halftime?
It could have been halftime, but halftime. Very true. Thank you, Carlos.
Mm-hmm.
I guess sometimes I have selective reading, also selective hearing too,
It's all
just in
good.
case if you're wondering.
That's why we're a team, bud.
I, I like that. Where I drop it, you pick it up. That's good. So instead of assuming where her players were mentally and simply telling them what to do, Summit preferred truly to understand them by asking the questions and listening to them. This time, Summit made a leader shift to her leadership based on connection and not direction. So earlier, before the podcast, me and Carlos were kind of talking about pretty much the connection, not direction part. And we feel like, I think everything in a whole, getting a connection, I think it makes things in a sense like less harsher if you were to give direction. And it could maybe not even be, well, direction, being evaluated, being critiqued, as in like in the workforce or something like that. I
Maybe
just feel,
share the example you shared earlier
which one was that?
about uh
Oh, the one with you.
yeah,
Oh
or
man.
the other manager.
No, we'll just go with you because you're sitting here. So one of the things is, I, for the new listeners out there, me and Carlos used to work together. He was my boss. He told me what to do, and without hesitation, I would do it. I would never question anything that he would tell me to do. That just was not me. Okay, maybe a little questioning. I could see that in your blinking eyes. But so pretty much like during any time that we might have had, um, I don't know, certain things that we had to do. And if it's not necessarily like he ever had to yell at me or anything like that, but if it was something that maybe I didn't agree with, we would talk about it, and he would ask me maybe why I didn't agree with it, and I would let him know. And then in the end, it would still be what he told me to do, but it could be part of a collective bargaining, I guess, between us two. But no matter like what was said, no matter what was done, like I knew his heart because we had that connection. And so any direction that he did give me, it wasn't as bad as if I didn't know him and him telling me just to do something. So it all comes back down to leadership is based on connection and not direction.
Yeah, and like technically, when you're at a job and then the supervisor or whatever tells you to do something, for the most part, you're supposed to just do it, right? For the most part, that's kind of how it works. That's what you get paid to do. But me, like Winslow said, we would have conversations, and they would lead back.
Long conversations.
Yes, we'd have pretty detailed, thorough conversations as time permitted to hit the concerns, to hit the objectives of what our organization was doing, and the timelines, and try to like think of it through the lens of a business owner, knowing that we both are employees of this organization, and that we know that we have a job to do. So in light of that, there's a lot of flexibility in some areas, and there's some areas where there's just objectives that we have to meet. And so it was always a dance to me to work with anybody. It doesn't matter about positions. It's the issue of how do you get people to buy in and to feel like they're a part of a team, and to not only feel like they're a part of a team, but to actually know that we are a team, and that this is a partnership of us working together, and we just have maybe different areas of responsibilities. And so that was always a delicate dance, which was fun. Enjoyed it. Really enjoyed working with you.
Same here.
Yeah, and you caused me to grow, because you definitely did have questions, and you wanted answers.
A lot of questions. So one thing that I want to bring up about, I guess, being a leader is like knowing the person, because I feel like that's a relational um type of thing. And I feel like being a good leader, in a sense, you have to have good relationships with your whoever's underneath you, like however you want to see it. Because there was times where he would ask me a question, but he knows me, and something that could be answered in like 7 words, I would answer it in like 7 paragraphs. And so, like, time permitting, it would be like, all right, let's just get to it. Like, what are you asking? Because if not, then I'm going to go on for like I don't know, 75 minutes when it could just be answered in like 5 minutes, maybe. But by building a good relationship and the relationship that we were able to build, um, by him being the leader that he was, knowing me, pretty much like building that relationship and everything like that, he was able to get down to, I hate this phrase, but I'm going to say it anyway, but the meat and potatoes of it. Because we might have had a deadline or something like, or he
I
had a deadline.
love meat and potatoes.
The physical thing of meat and potatoes, yes, I do love those, but not the saying meat and potatoes. That's just like, okay, I get it, but no, sorry. I mean, I'm just saying
But it did take a relationship, and I think that that's where that
the
connection
connection,
came. That's where that connection
connection
came.
or connection with direction
Yeah.
is a little bit better, I would say.
Hmm.
So leadership based on connection, not direction, is leadership that embraces collaboration rather than authority, active listening rather than talking. And I think just in general, a big thing in being a good leader comes down to listening and listening well. Um, because if not, then it's almost like you're a leader of one. I mean, obviously, we'll say there's 5 people under you, so you're a leader of them too. But if you don't listen to maybe any of their concerns or any of their, I don't know, maybe positive things that they could bring to the table, then you're not doing justice for maybe this organization that we're talking about, or just yourself in general. Um, and I do want to bring this back up again, even though I've said it last podcast and probably the podcast before that, but how Carlos was talking about anybody could be a leader. If you're an influencer, then you can be a leader. So I just want everybody out there that hasn't heard me say that before, that if you're an influencer some way, that you can also be a leader. So a leader does not have to have the words next to it, leader, or anything like that. If you're influencing in some sort of way, you are also a leader.
Okay. So just if you're influencing in some sort of way, not necessarily like an Instagram influencer, right?
Why not?
No, I'm saying like of course it could include that, but when I hear influencer, I can't help but
Think about yourself.
no. Oh, think about, how that term is used these days, oh, I want to be an
Yes.
influencer. So,
Influencer at the workplace,
yes,
influencer at your
at
church,
home.
influence at, that was the next one I was going to say,
I knew
influencer
it.
at
I
home,
knew it.
influencer anywhere. Like, you can be a leader. So just know, anybody out there that's watching this right now or listening to us right now on Apple, Castbox, Amazon Music, Anchor, Spotify, and I think there's another one that we're missing. But any of those platforms, if you're listening to us, just know influencer. I'm not just speaking about social influencer. I'm thinking about any influencer in any, I don't know, demographic, any place, work, home, church, wherever it may be. But I did feel like I needed to say that part though.
So, um, the last banner said leaders must learn to listen well in order to serve their team well. And I guess what comes to my mind is why does a leader need to learn how to listen well? And is that a skill set that
Yes.
is developed? And let's touch on that.
So is it a skill set that's developed? Yes. Because I feel for the most part, everybody wants to talk. And it's not necessarily like in a bad sense. Like I want what I say to be top priority, but I feel like everybody wants to be heard, which there's nothing
That part.
wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Like everybody wants to be heard, but I think that's what what makes somebody this is the only way I know how to say it. Somebody a step above in their thinking, um, from being a employee to being management to being a leader, which is listening. And that's just like in anything. So real quick thing that I remember hearing like a long time ago was like the owner of Netflix, like how he came about the owner of how he came about things was that he would just pretty much like sit there and listen to what people were like wanting, like what's something that people, and I guess this just in general, like how people build companies, they listen to what people need, what people want, or maybe even what they need and what they want. And so they're the ones that take it to market. And the only way that they're able to do that is by listening. Or I guess you could like what Gary Vee does a lot is he'll like go through his comments and he'll read different people's like posts and stuff like that, like to see what the, in a sense, what the market is wanting. And so he kind of attacks that because it's what people want. And so by being able to listen, being able to read, it puts him a step above somebody that only wants to talk. See what I mean?
Yep. So he's searching for feedback,
Yeah.
any type of feedback, because that's all data and information that helps you to kind of know how people are feeling, how they're thinking, and you can kind of hear the voice behind the voice sometimes on what is it they're really trying to say, what are they asking for. And I think when it comes to listening well, you really hit it on the point when it comes to everyone wants to talk. And yeah, there's some people who just they're just you know they're chatterboxes. They talk a lot. But then there's people who they're talking, but they want to be heard. And they actually do want direction. They actually do want to listen, but they need to know once again that you care. And they need to know that you um, have an ear for their concerns, or their ideas or their dreams. And I think ultimately that's what helps people, because especially like in the work environment, when it comes to our life. I remember this one quote. It's like we sell our lives by the hour, right? And so it's like if you think about it, every single day you're selling your life by the hour towards a company. And if money is not like a pressing need, then you're gonna be looking for other metrics to gauge your happiness. If like if you didn't have a job and all you needed was like you just were so happy to have a job, then that money, will do the trick. But if that's not where you're at, then it goes into culture. It goes into that saying where people don't quit their bosses. No, people don't quit their jobs, they quit their bosses, right? And where they don't want to continue to work for them. And I think that if um, management or even just whatever the case is, there's someone that is listening to you and drawing out from you, what you care about, drawing out from you your concerns, and just allowing you um, a place to give feedback, and you being the sounding board. It does a lot for people, and it makes them feel like you care. They feel heard, and then they're more likely to listen.
And I think a big thing comes down to like a skill or a skill set or whatever the case may be. Like, so some say if we'll just say leader, if they bring 5 people around and everybody is wanting to be heard, so everybody is talking. I think what is the word? I feel like um a pro to being a great leader would be, or a great attribute for a great leader would be to, because a lot of times like these people might not be asking a question. What they're doing is they're voicing their opinion. So it's more of a statement rather than a question. So I feel like a good leader would know like these statements, they're actually questions. So it's a lot easier for them to be able to voice um maybe a concern or maybe some discussion about these statements that are actually questions. Because if they just hear like people just like talking about like their concerns, it's not set up in a typical question sense. It's more set up in a statement sense. So I feel like a great like skill that a great leader can have is be able to differentiate the two. Like even though they're asking it in, or even though they're saying it in a statement, it's more so into a question. And so by all these people having questions, statements, whatever the case may be, the great leader will be able to um, get down to the point of what I guess the people under them are actually trying to get to.
Can you give like an example?
So like if it was just kind of like a, let me see, a specific example I can't, but it would be like if somebody would be like,
Maybe.
what do you not like about this company, and they say I don't like the work environment or something like that. So maybe what they're actually saying is there's something within this work environment that I would like to change, but I don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So then you get down to the like, okay, so if it's the work environment that you don't like, so what about the work environment do you not like? Oh, there's only one bathroom for 10 people. That would probably be one of mine, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you get down, even though they made a statement on that there's something that they don't like, but they don't know what it is. So they're almost posing the question of like the whole bathroom situation. Like there's something deeper into it
Like behind it, they're saying, "How come you guys don't have another bathroom?"
type of thing.
Right?
Yeah. But and I think maybe they feel like if they said a statement rather than had a question, they wouldn't be shot down. And so then it comes back down to the whole thing of fear of failure.
Okay.
So if I'm going to pose it as a statement, then it's just a statement. And if you touch on it, then cool. If not, then I'm still going to feel the same way that I feel, rather than a question like, "Hey, can we get another bathroom in here?" Then they're going to say no, or whatever the case may be. And then it's like, oh, now I'm going to feel shot down. I'm going to feel rejected. And now probably depends on who they are. Their work might I don't know, go down a little bit or something.
Yep. Yep.
But I think it's just being able to listen, and I think this listening process all comes back down to having a relationship, um, having the what is it, the
The
connection,
connection.
having the connection before the direction, because by having that connection, I think makes things just easier, like no
I
matter what the case may be.
I always think it's like a WD-40 on the relationship.
Meaning
It lubes the relationship. It like makes things run smoother. There's
connection.
yeah, that connection.
Okay.
Definitely. Definitely that connection or trust or feeling like you care. Those are the things that make things run smoother because there's like been studies and stuff that have to do with when there's lack of trust in the work culture. And so like when there's no trust, then you're not going to say how you really feel. You're not going to say how you really think. And because you don't
Unsafe environment
yeah,
in a sense.
yeah, you're for whatever reason, whether it's unsafe or
Maybe not unsafe, but
for a variety of reasons, right? So the thing is if you don't feel like you can communicate and you don't feel it's safe to communicate, you're probably not going to be, especially if you're boots on the ground and you're like working on the front lines of whatever the organization or whatever it is. You're not going to say the things that could help because either one, you don't think that they'll care, or two, you don't think that even they care, but they can't do nothing about it unless it goes higher up, and so you start getting silent. And it makes me think of a quote. I think it was Colin Powell, and he said the day that your soldiers, it's not the exact quote, but basically he said the day that your soldiers stop coming to you is the day that you've basically lost your influence with them because
I can see that.
they no longer think you can help them or they think you no longer care.
I can see that. So I think this next point that we're going to be making, I think it comes down to yes, as in being a leader, but I just think this in general, because I think as a general rule of thumb, I just feel like being a good listener, like will help in all aspects of life, whether you're a leader, whether you're a mom, whether you're a dad, whether you're um, whatever the case may be. So the big thing is to be brave enough to ask your colleagues, your friends, family members, how good a listener you are. Um, Typically, you're probably going to be around them the most. And so they would have a pretty good idea of how great of a listener you are. But you have to ask those people that, in a sense, will tell you the truth without hurting your feelings.
Why does it say be brave enough?
Because I think it all comes down to that you don't want to ask because you're afraid. Because you're afraid, like, let's say that I feel like I'm a good listener. Um, but maybe I'm afraid to ask them because by me thinking I'm a good leader and then somebody else is going to be like, you're all right. It's going to maybe, I don't know, hurt my feelings. And so I think when feelings and all this other things come into play,
Hurt your ego.
yeah, my ego, my pride. So then I think that's the reason why it talks about to be brave,
Yep.
be courageous, and just ask. Doesn't even have to be your colleagues, could be your friends, like close friends that will tell you what you really need to work on, or I don't know, maybe you're just a really great listener. Who
To me,
knows?
there's so much in this, just this little tiny snippet right here. Be brave enough to ask your colleagues, friends, or family members how good a listener you are. I mean, there's so much to that because first of all, there's the, being brave enough to ask requires some courage because you might hear something that is not going to feel good. And to me, there's also some other components to it as far as like, first of all, you want to know the truth. And why do you want to know the truth? Because you want to make sure you're connecting. You want to make sure you're improving as, whatever role you're in or just that relationship. You want to make sure that, there's nothing in the air and that you're trying to improve yourself. Goes back to like personal growth and things of that nature. But the personal growth that happens improves the relationship. And that's, I think, the point of asking. But there's the other side of it too, where say you didn't think it through and you go to ask somebody, am I a good listener? And they are not quite skilled at giving feedback. And the type of feedback they give you maybe is a little raw or uncut or, is a little more heat than light. And so maybe then you're like, okay, I'm never going to ask that again. And
A little
then
more vinegar than
yeah,
honey.
yeah, a little more vinegar than honey. And even though you may not have liked how they delivered that package, it really boils down to asking ourselves: Is there what was truth in what they said? Was there anything true about what they said that we need to take a look at?
And so since you did bring up the word growth, I'm gonna go into something that we kind of talked about like pre podcast, which I was listening to the John C. Maxwell podcast. If you haven't checked it out, it is pretty good. They talk about leadership, quite a few other things, and I believe they're probably like on Apple Podcasts and everything like that. But it's a John C. Maxwell leadership podcast, I believe. But one of the things that they talked about, which I totally agree with, was that growth is the only guarantee tomorrow will be better. So if you're always just stuck in the mindset of I'm just going to move forward and not really try to grow, then whatever you're feeling today and whatever you're going through today, it's probably going to be there tomorrow. So with the whole growth thing, I feel that if you're focusing and being intentional on you growing, I feel that it's going to help you like in the long run. It's going to help you in the short term, meaning the next day. Because you could only, or the biggest thing for me is that I can only get better than I was yesterday. And that's like the big thing is just trying to do better. Uh, Even with small growth, I like to call it small ball. But like small growth. And I just found like that was pretty good that they talked about, I would say.
Yep.
So along with listening, you might want to pay attention to the answers and act on them.
What? You might
That's
want to
right.
pay attention.
You might want to. So ask them to let you know anytime they feel you aren't listening to them in the future. And so it's all about being being able to being able to be able to listen to that, in a sense, constructive criticism, to be able to listen to the things that you might not want to hear, you might want to hear. But if you're in the whole thing of growth mindset, I would definitely suggest that you want to hear this, because if you want to be better as a leader, if you want to be better as in any aspect of your life, I feel that anything that could be said that is constructive, I feel that it will help you grow. And anything that helps you grow, and personally, spiritually, as a leader, I think those are all good things for you to be able to grow in.
So let me ask you this one. So has anyone ever asked you about their listening skills? Have you ever experienced that?
Has anybody asked me how their listening skills are?
Uh-huh. Anything
Uh,
that open them up for feedback or potential critique or whatever?
Listening, no. Critique, yes. But it was critique in a general aspect of maybe their job that they're doing, but it wasn't necessarily something that was pinpointed priority of listening. What about yourself?
What did it make you think? When, or how did it leave you feeling, or how did it shape your opinion when you experienced that? Someone asking your opinion about them.
So I'm because I created a, in a sense, a connection with them. Um, I feel that they know anything that I say isn't rude. Is I'm not trying to be rude or anything like that. I'm just telling them like exactly what I feel. Now, sometimes I don't sugarcoat things. Um, but I don't do it in such a rude way that it's going to make them feel down. You know what I mean? Like I'm not there to like pull you down or anything like that. A lot of times, like what I do is I bring up some of the stuff that, because I'm listening to what they're saying, I'm grabbing like some of the things that they say, and I'm using it within what I feel. Um, so it's a little less. Um, Now, anything that I'm saying, I'm telling them 100% of my truth of what I think, but I'm always trying to use like some of the stuff that they're saying into their own criticism, in a sense. Um,
Do you think you're overly concerned about hurting their feelings or upsetting them?
I think at times it and sometimes almost depends. Like if it's early in the morning, I'm not a morning
Whether
person.
you've had your coffee or not?
Yeah, I'm not a morning person, so I might just say whatever.
Don't
But
ask me my critique right now.
but for the most part, I feel like I do a pretty decent job. I could probably do better, but I feel like I do a pretty good decent job in that, I would say.
So it's even a mindset and a skill set to give constructive feedback in a
What
meaningful way.
more so if they ask. And
Sure.
they don't even have to ask me in the question of like, "Oh, well, give me some constructive criticism." It might just be in a conversation that we're having, and if I feel like there is a small hint of, "So tell me what you think," then I'm going to tell you what I think. And at the end of me telling them what I think, I'm going to tell them why I'm letting them know. And it'll be like, "Oh, well, earlier when we were talking, you kind of said this. So this is the reason why I brought that up." So it's not ever like a we're just talking and then all of a sudden I'm throwing my input and then that's it. Because then it's kind of like, well, I didn't even ask you. But in my head, it's like, okay, so I thought about like what you said with my active listening, and there is a small point where I can, in a sense, like justify it in my head to not make it into like me pointing my finger at them. It's like, okay, so what are we going to do as a collective whole, as a creative whole, collective whole, more so, but in order to help you become better and more successful at whatever you're doing.
Okay.
Know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
Nice. So leading with connection is better for everybody. It leads to better relationships, better communication, and a two-way flow of ideas. So I think the whole thing of better relationships leads to better communication. And definitely it does permit the two-way flow of ideas. Especially and I almost feel like the better relationships does give permission for the two-way flow of ideas, because if you have a good relationship, then you kind of know the other person, and if you know the other person, then you kind of know like what you guys can, well, in a sense, what you guys can and can't talk about. But no matter what, if you have that good connection, good relationship with them, I feel like it could go, in a sense, like any way.
I think another thing to keep in mind too is like um in leading, leading a conversation, for example, being mindful of the time, because sometimes I've been in situations where I had very limited time and I needed to have a small conversation, and the person was not mindful, or I didn't make them aware of the time limit that we're on. So they kind of went a little deep, a little fast, or wanted to go a little long. And so, through experiencing some pain in conversation, or potentially hurting people's feelings, or me being concerned that they walked away feeling like I cut them off or cut them short, what it did is it made me develop the skill of being more mindful about how much time I can allot to this conversation, letting them be aware of, hey, I really want to talk with you about this. I have about 10 minutes or so. I would love to continue this conversation even beyond this. If we could set up another time to talk. But for now, I just want to keep that front and center, that there is a time limit. So just kind of keep that in mind so we don't get too deep, you know? And at the same time, you don't feel like I'm not hearing what you're saying or picking up what you're putting down. I don't
And
want you to walk away feeling like I didn't care.
and I think a big thing comes down to like, by you saying all this, and you could be intentional in what you're asking
Yeah.
rather than just letting it kind of go, and maybe using basic like questions that you're asking them that leads into like a 10-minute conversation by itself. You're more intentional on the questions that you ask, like, because you can ask deeper questions,
Mm-hmm.
um, that is also using like the general question that they're probably, or that you can probably ask. You could go a little bit deeper and be more intentional in your idea. So one thing that I want to say, before we go into this next key idea, is for anybody that is on YouTube, I hope that you hit the like button and the subscribe button, so you could kind of keep updated to when we come out with new podcasts on different books on personal development, or maybe when we discuss, maybe kind of like some of the episodes like practical Christianity and fear and encouraged in a biblical perspective. Um, so pretty much that you could just keep up to date, and if you like what you hear, so hopefully you could go down there, hit the like and subscribe. Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
So this next key idea that we're going to be discussing is how to embrace diversity. So you want to take this one for a little bit?
Sure. So, in the book, it talks about making the shift to valuing diversity will bring greater value and richness to your leadership and life. So, to value diversity, that's something that has to come from within. That means you have to actually care about having diverse opinions. And in the book, it talks about when Maxwell was a young man in Circleville, Ohio. Every time I
Go
hear Ohio, I'm
Circleville.
like, I'm like Ohio.
OH.
Anyways, When he was
IO.
a young man in Circleville, Ohio, there was absolutely nothing diverse about his environment, and his community was almost completely white. The leaders in his Protestant church were white men. They looked alike and they acted alike. As a young pastor, conformity to tradition was drilled into him. And then the book says that over time, he came to realize that the most important lessons and insights often come from those outside of your own group. Would you find that to be true,
Yes.
Winslow?
Pose a question again. Find what to be true.
That you,
Important lessons and insights often come from
yes,
outside your own group.
correct.
Um, I mean, often is a seems like an arbitrary phrase, but like quite a bit of times, I would say. And I think it comes back down to the whole thing of when I was talking about mentoring. Like there was like kids that were like 14 years old, and I was like 25 years old, 30 years old, whatever the case may be. And I was open to hearing conversations. And sometimes there was things that I just never thought about for whatever reason. And they're outside of my own group. And there was lessons that I was able to learn. Maybe not hardcore wisdom, life seeking insights or important lessons or anything, but there was something that I was able to gain out of it. And it was from outside of my own group. So outside of my own group could be, I don't know, different race, color. Well, I guess that's kind of the same. Or maybe not. Religion, um, age,
A lot of
whatever the
different,
case may be.
a lot of different demographic markers,
Yeah.
right?
And so I feel like that's definitely a true statement, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, he goes on to talk about that he learned this from his first discussions with the Catholic priest and from his move to Atlanta, a city rich in African American culture, far removed from Circleville. So as you think about what he said, he was a Protestant white man in a church environment that was with
All white,
other
pretty much.
all pretty much all white and very much look like a reflection of the mirror, right? Where you're gonna,
Himself.
yeah, you're gonna pretty much hear things that you already agree with, or they're coming from the same perspective or point of view, which can end up being a bottleneck in gaining insights because basically it's just an echo chamber many times, right? And so by him going to a Catholic priest or having discussions with the Catholic priest, like that's a big jump in from a Protestant to a Catholic. So you're going to hear different type of information coming from a priest and his experience. And then not only that, moving to Atlanta, where he says it was African American culture. Um, that's going to definitely take him out of his element, right? If he's used to whiteness, right, and now he's in a city that's rich in African American culture, that's definitely going to make him have to shift the way he engages people, and what he was used to is no longer the norm.
Nope.
And so the book goes on to say that teams are more effective and valuable when they embrace diversity because diversity brings insight and perspective that can fill the knowledge gap. As a leader, you can't know everything. You rely on your team to fill those gaps, and it can do so most effectively when it brings different perspectives to the table. And
I
so
think
this is something that is important to me, um, because I've been like, so for example, um, in church, especially because the community I live in, it's a high population of Hispanics, and the churches I've been to been predominantly Hispanic, and so a lot of culture comes from that, especially in, this isn't like high church, this is like more low church. And by that I mean it's not like stained glass windows and stuff like that and strong denominational ties. This is more like non-denominational people who come from a background of addiction or prison, and a lot of that background. Those are the type of churches I've been in, and so a lot of times there's a culture that's there, and that can end up being um, like an echo chamber. You hear the same thing all the time. So I've been very intentional about listening to black pastors, white pastors, high church, low church,
Chinese pastors.
Chinese pastors, people from different backgrounds, people from big cities to rural communities, people who are just bringing different things to the table. Why? Because I want to be exposed to a lot of different things. I don't want to be stuck with a limited small perspective. And you, sir?
Well, I just kind of agree. Like, I think the big thing is like filling in the gaps that you can't fill. And I think by knowing that, I think makes somebody either makes them a strong leader, makes them a strong just person in general. So they're not just stuck in that one, they're not stuck in that box of their own thinking, that they kind of venture out and they see and they know that there's other diverse groups, whatever that case may be, that there are a lot of things that can help an individual in their own path to whatever they're trying to do for self growth, spiritual growth, whatever the case may be. I think diversity is very strong, and it can help people become a lot better,
Most definitely.
just as a person in general.
Yeah, gives you a richer soul for sure. So in the book, it goes on to say that Abraham Lincoln actually built his cabinet from a diverse group of people. That his the members of his cabinet were sworn political rivals, not allies. That made for interesting
Yeah,
conversation, I'm sure, especially when it comes to politics, right? And the book goes on to say
sworn
that
political rivals.
sworn political rivals. He says the tough demands of the Civil War required the skills of the best thinkers and diversity of perspective, not homogenous group thinking. Homogenous group thinking is basically everyone looks like you, everyone sounds like you, they come from your same socioeconomic class, they probably vote the same way you do,
So what about
and
with the same hat?
same hat, but it's what's inside, right? So
That's right.
the point was is Abraham Lincoln had the mindset that understood that if he wants to tackle these problems, that he's going to need the best minds, even if they disagreed with him on a lot of points that in other times would separate them. But for the need of the hour and for what they were trying to accomplish, he needed their minds. And so
Hmm.
that's a sign of great leadership. And so it also says that if you'd like to bring more diversity into your life, first take a critical look at your friendship and professional circles. I think that does say a lot about somebody. Do you have a small circle or a large circle of diversity? I think those
I
are
have a large. Mine's pretty large. I mean, it's within small circle, but I feel like the diversity wise, I feel it's pretty wide.
mhm,
Um, and the for the most part, the group that I've grown up with and that I might hang out with, it's something of every background. So you kind of get a little bit of everything. And the good thing about it is, since we've all been friends for a while, like we can have like these open discussions about certain things. If
about touchy topics sometimes.
yeah, I mean, it might go like into like a little, almost in a sense, maybe passive aggressiveness, but it's more like in a joking way. And it's probably something on how what they really think, but it's not nothing like racist or like something that's like putting somebody else down or anything like that. But it's enough to open up a conversation of touchy subjects. And
Hmm.
I think just being able to open up the discussion of touchy subjects is always a good thing. And especially if you're within a group and if you guys want to become stronger, then you should be able to talk about whatever and not have any like feelings of them talking down on you.
I think you hit a really good point about if you want to build a stronger group, because it requires trust. It requires trust that the person means well, and even where there may be some potential misunderstanding or a little bit of discomfort in the conversation, because you trust their intent, you're able to have that conversation with them. And even if there is something like, whoa, That's new, because if they care more about the relationship than their own opinions, that's something that they might be willing to walk through in a conversation, right? And so it's challenging. It requires good communication skills. It requires patience. It requires trust. It requires curiosity, to have those type of conversations. It really does, and I think you get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
So on to the next point. It says, so if you're looking at your friends and your contact list, and it's a little bit too much like looking into a mirror, make an effort to get to know and learn from people of different races, ages, and political persuasions. And that means, once again, growth is at times uncomfortable, because if you're going to put yourself in conversations with a lot of differences, there's a chance you're going to be uncomfortable. But that's usually where growth happens.
That's what I was just going to say right now. I think being uncomfortable leads to growth in some aspect.
Definitely.
So one of the last things that um, the biggest takeaway that I got is within all this. I mean, it might be a little bit harder to go into other diverse groups that you really don't know, um, and for them to know your heart. But I still feel connection is better than direction. Or what was it? Leading with
Connection before
connection,
direction.
not direction.
Mhm.
Because even if you go into a town hall meeting or something with that idea of connection, not direction, I feel like even in that circumstance, I feel like it'll hold way more weight than you just going in there and trying to direct people and trying to get people to listen to your ideas without doing the listening, being the listener, and pretty much hearing everybody out. So make sure you listen and make sure you like and subscribe. So then Carlos could hear me tell him that we got another subscriber.
What do they say in the podcast world? Smash that
Smash
subscribe
that
button.
like button
Smash that like button. I'm like, man, they all
or
read the same
subscribe,
script.
but maybe not smash it, because what if it's first not a touch screen? You might break your screen, and then you're gonna have to. You'll probably tell yourself a few words, and then hopefully you have money saved up, and you go buy another one. But with that being said, I would just like to say thank you again for listening to us today. We appreciate you so much. We love you, and we wish the best for you. This is Carlos and Winslow, and we are the Creative Whole. Peace out.
Talk to you guys later. Thanks for listening.
Enjoy. Thank you. We love you.
Hey.
That's right. Right. Thank you.